ننتقل الآن إلى الجلسة الثالثة.
We move to the third session that under the title of cyber security and how to protect ourselves in the digital world, and provided by Lisa Fortier, the special.
It is time now to move on to our third session themed Cybersecurity, How to Protect Your Digital Life, delivered by Lisa Forte, a cybersecurity expert. Ms. Forte, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm going to be talking about cybersecurity and protecting your digital life today. So, my name's Lisa Forte. I'm a cybersecurity professional. I'm a founder of my own company that specializes in helping other companies prepare for a cyber attack. That's what we do. We help people prepare for the absolute worst case scenario. I'm also a keynote speaker, as you can see here today. But perhaps more interestingly, I really enjoy ice climbing and doing crazy things on the side of mountains as well, which is a lot of fun. But I want to start by planting a bit of a picture in your mind. So imagine this, it's the morning, your alarm goes off on your phone. It's 6 a.m., you're tired, the alarm goes off on your phone, you reach over and you turn the alarm off on your phone. As you do so, you see you've got 3 WhatsApp messages. So you go and check who were those WhatsApp messages from. You maybe check a news application, see what's happening in the news. Maybe you look at social media. Eventually, you get out of bed and you say something like, Alexa, turn the coffee machine on. The coffee machine is ready to go first thing in the morning. Maybe you sit there and you browse YouTube or Instagram. Maybe you check your online banking or your investment portfolio with your coffee. You then eventually get out the house and you go down to your car, and you probably put your new destination into Google Maps to navigate to your new destination. En route, you stop somewhere for a coffee, and you pay for that coffee using Apple Pay. Perhaps you're sitting there drinking your coffee in a coffee shop, and you're maybe buying your friend a present on Amazon, or maybe you're checking new flights that you've got to go somewhere else, or maybe just making that reservation for dinner one night. You head to work, you're probably going to log into your email, perhaps you're going to have some meetings on Teams or Zoom or something like that, and then you head home for the day, and maybe you Google a recipe to cook for dinner or something like that, and then eventually you sit on the couch and you watch Netflix. Think about that day for a moment. Almost every point of that day, you have done something that has touched the internet. Something has connected to the internet that has enabled you to do what you're doing during your day. And every time we use technology, every time we do something that connects to the internet, there is a potential vulnerability there for hackers to exploit. So the problem is, you see, that everything we use creates a door to the internet, creates a door to attackers potentially to get into our lives. But also consider this. If that was your day, imagine how disrupted your day would be if Apple Pay didn't work, or if you couldn't get onto your online banking, or you couldn't get onto your social media, or you couldn't access your email. How many aspects of your day wouldn't then be able to happen if you couldn't access those things? What if, when you ask Alexa to turn on the coffee machine, she refuses to turn it off? And your coffee machine is on forever and you can't turn it off. These are the problems that we have with cybersecurity. Everything that we use, all of the technology that we have access to, which is fantastic, also opens opportunities for hackers. So I'm going to go through some of the key threats that you see in front of you, and hopefully give you some examples of how this can all manifest. So let's start with smart homes. Many of you will have this. I'm from the UK. In the UK, this is something that people really love to do. So they have internet-connected kettles and fridges, and everything has to be controlled from your iPhone or from your smartphone, essentially. And if we look at devices like Alexa, does anyone here have an Alexa? couple of people who sheepishly putting their hands up just in case I'm going to say something really awful about Alexa. I sort of am, I sort of aren't. This isn't singling out Alexa per se, but these sorts of digital assistants all have this exact same problem. So if we look at Alexa for a moment, think of it logically. You are just putting microphones all around your house that potentially record your conversation at any time and send it to Amazon, is essentially what you've done in that situation. Yes, it's very convenient. I have friends who do it, and it's undoubtedly very convenient. But in 2018, something came out. And it turned out that a couple, husband and wife, had been having a conversation. And for some bizarre reason, Alexa had recorded that conversation and then sent it to the husband's work colleague, which wasn't ideal, to say the least. So we don't really know why they did that. Amazon claimed that it was a mistake, that Alexa misheard what was going on and recorded the conversation and sent it to somebody else. But it's something to think about. Now, in the USA, Amazon actually got charged with violating kids' privacy laws because it was keeping the voice recordings of children despite the fact the parents had asked for it to be deleted. So again, you may well be doing everything in your power to keep control of that data, but that's not to say that that data is being deleted as you think. And in 2023, they settled, I think it was $25 million, I think, because it came out that Amazon had 30,000 employees that were listening and reading Alexa transcripts that were coming out of your Amazon Alexa device. Now imagine this for a moment. That's the problem if Amazon is listening to your conversations. But what happens if a hacker gets into Amazon and then listens to those conversations? Something to think about. This is the problem that we have with technology. It's always the same. So if you do have an Alexa and you want to make it a little bit more secure, I recommend make sure you go into the settings and tell it to delete recordings, opt out of sending it to Amazon, opt out of sending the data to Amazon, and make sure your password is really secure on it in case anyone gets in. But that's your home, okay? We also have connected cars. Modern cars now are connected with Wi-Fi, Bluetooth. You've probably got Apple CarPlay. You probably have remote keyless entry on your car, so the fobs that get into the car as well, so you don't need an actual key. And penetration testers, so cybersecurity professionals like myself, have proven that they can get into these cars and control the wipers, the radios, they can turn the engine on and off, all remotely from somewhere else in the world. And if you look at the top cars that we have now on the road, they have 1,000 to 3,000 microchips in them with 150 different electronic control units. So to put that into perspective, that's 4 times more lines of code that are in a fighter jet. And each line of code represents a potential risk. So now you've got a vehicle that potentially is also another avenue for attack. Now, car companies are looking into this. There's lots of regulation around the world that's coming in to make sure car companies are thinking about cybersecurity when they're creating their products. But there are a couple of things that I want to urge you to do in changing your habits if you have modern vehicles. The first one is, if you can disable Wi-Fi, if you don't need the in-car Wi-Fi, turn it off, because it's much more secure if you do so. The other thing, and this actually happened to one of my friends back in the UK. She had a Mercedes. It was parked in her driveway. And every day she'd follow the same pattern of behavior. She'd come home, open the door, hang her keys up on the hook by her front door, and get on with her day, looking after her kids, etc. And one morning she woke up and she looked out of the window and she said to her husband, "Did you park the car somewhere else?" And he said, "No." She went downstairs and the key is still hanging where the key needs to be. And she said, "Well, the car's gone. Where did you park the car? You must have parked it somewhere else." And he said, No, I haven't. I've just been in bed. I haven't done anything. What had happened was attackers had gone onto her driveway, and had cloned the signal coming from the key fob because it was right by the front door. And they'd use that to relay into the car, open the car, and start it without the key. So, one key piece of advice, if you have a car with a remote keyless entry, so a key fob or something like that, put the fob somewhere far into your house, not by your front door, nowhere that anybody would be able to get physically close to it. Hide it ideally, but don't put it right near the car. But all of these things that we talk about, we are logging into using apps or websites, right? And when I was at the airport yesterday, and I landed at 3 a.m. this morning, so I was at the airport very recently. When I was at the airport yesterday, I was thinking about this, and I was thinking, in my personal life, how many websites, apps would I log into every day? And I reckon it was in excess of 20, because every time I open an app on my phone, I'm essentially logging into that app, right? And the problem that you have, and probably this is what you're all doing, is you've probably got one email address that you link all of your accounts to. So all of your social media, your Amazon, your Emirates login, everything will link to one personal email address, right? So think about this for a second. If you're a hacker and you can get access to that one email address, you have access to everything. Because I can now go on and do a password reset for every single account you have, which will send it to my email address, which I have control of as the hacker, and now I control every account you have. I can change every password so you can't get back into them. So when we're thinking about account security, we have to make sure that our passwords are really good, really long, really complicated. It's very easy if they're common passwords for attackers to get in. It wouldn't take them very long at all, a matter of minutes in some cases to get that password. So you have to be really careful with that. The other thing that is really important to implement, and it takes literally 2 minutes to do, is make sure you've got some form of 2FA or MFA on an account. What I mean by that is, most accounts will send you a text message with a code. Great. Even better, download an app that does this and generates a code for you. You've probably done this in online banking before, where they've given you a code to get in. It makes it so much harder for attackers to get into your accounts and log into them. So it's really, really important, because everything we do is logged into accounts, and that brings me on to my next point. Social media. We all use social media. Now, back in the day, social media platforms had a problem, and that problem was that people were creating fake accounts. These fake accounts were popping up, and social media companies had a real problem keeping control of it. So what they decided to do was implement a new rule, and that rule was, okay, we're going to grade accounts. We're going to give accounts a rating, okay? So, for example, my Instagram. I've owned it for years. I've used it appropriately. It's locked down. I haven't spammed people. I haven't done any sort of suspicious behavior with it. So Instagram would rate my account high. If I open a new account right here on stage right now, and I start spamming people with Bitcoin adverts, Instagram are going to go, nah, we're quarantining this. No, you're not allowed to send any more messages. And it worked really well. But the problem was, for the bad actors, this creates a problem. Because now we can't just spin up fake social media accounts really quickly. So what did they do? They turned to hacking legitimate social media accounts. Because now, if you're a hacker and you get my Instagram, which is rated A, you've got access to an account that Instagram trusts. And now you can go out and you can spam people and you can attack vulnerable people or whatever it is you want to do with that account. So this is a huge problem. If you're an influencer, if you rely on social media for business, obviously that has a huge impact and a financial impact probably as well. But even if you don't, there's a reputational impact. Because if someone gets access to your account, they can do anything in your name with your profile picture on it, which nobody wants. And I did a talk, actually, in London for a conference that was for lawyers. And in that talk, I said to people, has anyone gone onto the Instagram settings, for example, and looked to see how many accounts are logged into your Instagram account? Has anyone done that here? Couple of good people in the back in that corner, secure corner over there. So I said this to the lawyers, and they started looking through it. And one lawyer said, oh my God, there's 6 different people in 6 different countries logged into my Instagram account. Had never noticed. Came up with China, this country, that country, etc., etc. Obviously not him. And he never noticed. And this is another problem. My final point with social media, we all take selfies, okay? And part of what I do when I'm not speaking is I go into companies and I help them become more secure. And in one company that I was working with, the CEO said to me, I want you to go out and see what you can find out information-wise on the board, on the sort of C-suite exec board. So I went online. It's something we call OSINT, which stands for Open Source Intelligence. And you sort of look at the internet and you see what you can find out about people from online. And I found this post from one of the execs, and she was sitting in front of her computer, obviously. She had a drink, which was in a glass, and I zoomed in on the image and flipped it round, and the reflection of her email screen was in the glass of the drink. And you could read the emails that had come in on her laptop from the glass that she was drinking out of. Same with sunglasses. When you finish here and when you go off to lunch, go and look on Instagram. Look at photos of people, especially if they're wearing dark sunglasses. Zoom in on them, see what you can see, because you'll find out a lot of information about where that person is, where they live, their number plate maybe, other pieces of information that they think they've hidden. So I would urge you, when you post a selfie, obviously make sure you're looking lovely, that's very important, but also just double check that the reflections aren't showing something you don't want, and if they are, go in and blur them out. Just make sure you're conscious of these sorts of things. So scams are something that affect individuals as well, and I promise you that this is almost the end.
هذه هي نهاية الأخبار السيئة لجلستنا اليوم. نحن تحدثنا 20 دقيقة عن الأمور السيئة على الإنترنت ولا العمليات الاحتيال هي مشكلة كبيرة جدا. هل حصل لأحدكم أن استلم رسالة سيئة على الواتساب أو مخيفة؟ نعم، من شخص يدعي بأنه لديه.
All the way through, we have this a lot in the UK, of people messaging their parents or whatever and pretending it's them, saying, I'm in hospital, can you send me some money to this account because I suddenly have changed my phone number and had a car accident all at the same time, or whatever the story is. But this happens a lot. It's a really, really big problem. And they're relying on a couple of things. So all of these sorts of attacks, whether they come in through WhatsApp, through email, through social media, direct message, whatever it is, they're relying on the fact that you are going to read the message and you're going to panic. There's a fantastic book that I recommend you read called Thinking Fast and Slow. It's an amazing book, and it's all about how human beings process information. And the psychologist who wrote it argues that we have 2 systems for making decisions. Every human being is the same. We have 2 systems for making decisions. We have one, which is super logical. We think about the pros and cons of a decision. We're weighing up whether it's worth the risk, whether it's too expensive, whether we like this, whatever. And we're thinking about it consciously. And then we have another system, and that system is driven by emotion. And we react emotionally to whatever information we're given. So, for example, if you're sitting here with a bottle of water, you're not sitting here weighing up the pros and cons of taking a sip of that water, are you? Because if you did that, you would never make any decisions in your life at all. You're feeling like, I want some water, I have a sip of the water, I don't think about it. Scams work in a similar way. What you'll notice is, typically, they will be emotionally charged messages. They will be urgent. So you've got a fine, or you've got some sort of thing that's happened. Someone's bought something on Amazon, or there's been a bank scam or something, problem with a delivery, something like that. Or they'll be emotional, so they'll say like, I'm your daughter and I need money because I've just been put into hospital. It will be something emotional. And the reason for that is they want you to react. They don't want you to sit and think about whether this is true or false or whether or not this could be malicious. Their chance of success goes down the longer you think about it. So what they really want from you is just to have an emotional reaction and click on the link or enter the details or send the money. That's what they want. So one of the most effective ways for dealing with messages like this is to stop and think. If you get a message and it's a bit unexpected, or it leaves you feeling immediately emotional or panicked or worried, that's a warning sign. Put the phone down, have a cup of tea, think about it, come back to it, and you'll undoubtedly see things differently if you do that. Because what they want is they don't want you to think about it. So remember that. And people have done all sorts of horrible things on messaging apps. Have any of you heard of romance scams? This is a really big problem in Europe. It's become a huge problem, actually, where people essentially meet someone online. And I actually had someone who contacted me and asked me for help. She was a very intelligent woman. She was a lawyer in London, not at all unintelligent. She was single. She met this person online on Instagram, actually, and instantly they fell in love. And she described it as, he was identical to me. Everything I liked, he liked. He had the same dog as me, he loved walking, he loved all of this, he had the same car as me, we were just identical, it was perfect. And then the relationship developed. He was apparently in South America, and he had a bit of problem with the job. He asked for a small amount of money to be sent to him. It was very small, it was like, I don't know, maybe $20, $30. So she sent him the $20, $30, a bit nervously, and he sent it back, he repaid it. Oh, okay, this can't be dodgy, because he paid back the $30, right? Then it was $80. Repaid the $80, okay, he's just having some hard luck. Then it was more and more and more and more. And by the end of it, she remortgaged her house and sent almost $600,000 to a guy who disappeared. She never heard from him again. And this happened completely over WhatsApp. And again, you can look at it and you can say, well, that was stupid, she should have known. But she was caught up in this emotion. If you've watched any of the Netflix documentaries on this kind of thing, these women, these people, they're caught up in it. They don't realize at that moment in time because they're emotional. This is the problem that we have. We're not making logical decisions. And this is made slightly harder still by AI. So have everyone heard of deepfakes? Anyone not heard of deepfakes? Okay, everyone's heard of deepfakes. So I decided to do a little experiment when it came to deepfakes because I was a bit skeptical. Lots of people in the cybersecurity community had talked about how deepfakes were going to be this enormous problem for security, right? And they were saying people would believe on the phone that it was you and so on and so forth. And I was a bit skeptical of this. So I decided to make a deepfake of myself. So I created an audio deepfake of Lisa. And I played it a few times and I thought, oh, that doesn't sound anything like me. So then I called my mum. And I played her the voice from the deepfake. So the person who she was conversing with was through this deepfake. And she didn't notice. And I said ridiculous things. I asked for money, which I never asked from my mum. I said all these sorts of really strange things. She didn't notice at all. In fact, she sent me a text message straight afterwards saying, "Thank you for calling, it was a lovely chat." Didn't realize at all it wasn't her daughter on the phone. Now, I would argue it didn't sound much like me, but on the phone, think of it this way. We've all had conversations where the signal isn't great, it's a bit patchy, a bit distorted. You might not notice that this person wasn't who you thought you were speaking to, right? And basically, it comes down to what I was just saying about scams. Ultimately, the aim of the game for scams, for sending deep fakes to you, is to get something out of you. These attackers aren't wanting to be your friend. They want money, they want data, they want you to give them access into something. So what I would say to you is, the moment you get any communication where someone asks for money, for passwords, for information, personal information on you, immediately that should set off alarm bells. And straight away you go, I'm not going to give you that. I'm going to try and verify this a different way. Because ultimately, that is the one thing you can guarantee that they will do. But we also have deep fakes on social media. We had, in the UK, we had an election recently, and both the parties that were running for our election were also using a lot of AI content for that election as well. So the whole thing causes a lot of issues with how do we know what's true and what's not true? How do we differentiate between something that's true or not true? I could tomorrow stand here and say that that video there that's being recorded, that's not real. That's not really me, that's a deep fake, and deny I was here. So how do we start to work this out? It's a real problem for society. It's a real problem for knowledge. It's a real problem for how we actually move forward with a lot of things. So whilst AI is fantastic and opens up a lot of opportunity, it also opens up some problems that we have to deal with as well. So one of the things that gets said to me a lot when I go on one of my rants to my friends and I tell them about all of the things they should do to be secure, people turn around to me and say, why would anyone hack me? I'm nobody. I don't have loads of money. I'm not the CEO of a big, important company. Why would you hack me? I'm nobody. There's a couple of problems with that. Firstly, we all have money. We all have credit cards. We all could apply for loans. That data is valuable to a lot of these people. You could also be extorted. That's also valuable, potentially. But there's one other thing that people don't think about. And it's not about you being hacked. It's about what they do with your account once it is. So one of the big problems that we have is hackers hacking, for example, your social media, hacking, for example, your car or your Alexa or your kettle or whatever it is that's connected to the internet, and then using that to attack other people. So using that to attack other companies, using that to attack governments, banks, whatever, using that computing power to attack other people. That's a really big driver for a lot of these hackers. So why they would hack you, yeah, they might get something out of you, but they can also use your accounts to hack other people. So actually we have a collective responsibility to more vulnerable people in our society, to the businesses and the governments and the services we use to make sure our accounts can't be used to attack other accounts. So that's one of the really important things. And one of the things that I'd like to point out is the UAE is now very much at the forefront of technology. You were ranked, I think, 11th in the digital competitive rank, which puts you at basically the top in the entire world. You are coming up in the top 10 for lots of technology-related metrics now. So you have a huge footprint and a huge opportunity to make a big impact globally when it comes to security. But there are some hopeful things that come out of this. Being more secure isn't difficult. Ultimately, so in the UK, GCHQ, which is one of our government agencies, says that if you do just a couple of simple things, you can be 80% less likely to be attacked. And it's really true, because for the most part, hackers have tons of victims. They have tons of potential victims that they can go after. If I come and try and hack your account, and I'm entering a password, and I see you've got 2FA set up on it, chances are I'm probably going to go, oh, it's not worth bothering with. I'll find someone who hasn't set that up. So instantly, by doing something simple, you're less attractive, and they'll go after someone who hasn't done it. So 6 things that I really would urge to take away from this. Password managers, number 1. You need long, complicated passwords. We cannot remember thousands of long, complicated passwords. Get yourself a password manager or use it on iPhone or whatever else you're using. Second, multi-factor authentication. Make sure every single account that you can implement this on is implemented. It takes 2 seconds. It takes as long as it takes to boil a kettle. Go and set them up. Updates. This is another one that people seem to hate. The thing that I need you to understand about updates, I know they're a pain. I know they're irritating. But when Apple, for example, releases an update, they are saying to the world, we have found this security vulnerability and we've fixed it. They have told the entire world what the vulnerability is. They have to. So that means every attacker out there now knows exactly how to get into those iPhones. So if you don't do the update, your phone is sitting there vulnerable. So when we have updates to do them straight away. Don't delay them, make sure you apply them, because from the moment that update's released, whatever you're using is vulnerable. Change default settings. If you buy any piece of technology, a drone, a kettle, a fridge, whatever it is that's going in your house, do not use it with the default password it comes with. It's not secure. This applies for your routers as well at home, your Wi-Fi routers. Log into the router and change the password. It takes 2 seconds to do, and you'll be much more secure for it. Be careful with what you scan, click, or screenshot. So obviously, links in messages, links in things we receive, let's not click on them unless we absolutely know what they are. But that also applies for QR codes. You can't read the QR code. Human beings can't do that. So the moment you click on that link, you're essentially just clicking on whatever link is embedded in that QR code. It's no different. If I set up a malicious QR code, you scan it, you go to it, it's the same as clicking on a malicious link. So be really careful when you do things like that. And make sure you also realize whatever you screenshot goes everywhere. If I screenshot this now on my iPhone, it will upload it to my iCloud, it will upload it to Dropbox potentially. 2 copies of that now exist in 2 different places. So just being really careful if you're photographing passports, things like that. Where is it going? Is it backing up somewhere? Do we know where that's going? Really careful. And when in doubt, check. I have never met anybody who has gone to someone and said, can I just check that was you messaging me? And it's irritated them. Ever. Go and check. Figure out a way to contact the person and just say, hey, I got this message from you. It didn't seem right. Can you just confirm it's you? It takes 2 seconds. One little caveat to that. I used to work in one of the UK police cybercrime units. And we had a case at the time, and one of the people there had clicked on a link, and they'd filled out all of this information, and they'd transferred a load of company money to these attackers. And when we sat down and talked to them about it, we sort of said, well, did you not call them and ask them if this was legitimate? And they said, yeah, we called the number that was in the email. And they'd put a number at the bottom of the phishing email. And they'd called the number in the phishing email, and the attackers had picked up and said, yeah, no, it's totally legitimate, you should pay the money. And they thought they'd double-checked. So check, but check somewhere else that isn't the place that you think. So thank you so much. It's been wonderful to come here. I've now got to rush and get a flight back to London. I love the UAE, and I'm really delighted to be here, so thank you so much.